Okay, so there's going to be three different types of problems that we're going to need to use here. We're going to have to find the equation, which means we really have to find a constant first. Okay, actually that's what this is going to talk about. We're going to substitute into the constant of variation equation so that we can find that constant. So that's just one step to figure out the equation. And then we're going to substitute that in, substitute that k in for the variation equation. The second one is finding a missing value, which is basically going to involve this. You have to find this variation equation and then use that to find the missing value. And the third one is basically doing that same thing, just with word problems. So you have to decide whether it's a direct or inverse variation, and then actually find the missing value, the basically fourth value. They're going to give you three. You have to figure out what type of equation it is, then actually figure out the equation, then figure out the fourth value using that equation. That sounds like a lot, but once break it down into some steps, it's actually not, just like all of math. Really, it's all simple steps. First, we need to decide what kind of equation we're going to use. This says that these vary directly. The third one says they are directly proportional. Those mean the exact same thing. It means we're using this equation, or if we want to find the constant, we would use this equation. Those are the exact same thing. They both talk about direct variation. This one is used to find the constant. This is the general form of the equation. So I want to find the constant. I need to figure out what this constant is so that I can plug it in to here and write the general form of the equation. I want to find the equation of variation. So I'm going to plug in y and x. It's basically just dividing those two. So my k here is 3. That's the constant, that's not the equation. The equation looks like this with the constant plugged in. Just like when we write an equation for a line, you don't really write numbers in for x and y. You basically just replace the slope and the y-intercept. Here it's kind of the same thing. We're just replacing the slope, we're just replacing that constant here. We leave y and x as variables. So y equals 3x. I'm going to do example 3 just because it's the exact same type of problem. I'm going to skip to that one. It's the exact same thing, directly proportional. So to find my constant, I'm going to use y divided by x. So here, my constant is 3 over negative 9, or if I simplify that, that's negative 1 over 3. So my constant is negative 1/3. And I'm going to plug it into this equation. Instead of my k, I'm going to write the constant negative 1/3. Those are both direct. Examples 2 and 4 vary inversely or are inversely proportional. Proportional just means it's increasing by a factor or decreasing by a factor. Really, it just means that there's a constant as a factor, that it's not being added or subtracted, it's being multiplied or divided. So my two equations are y equals k over x, or to find the constant, y times x. So my k here is going to be 5 times 7, which means it's just 35. And then I take that and I write it into this equation, because I'm looking for the equation of variation, which means y equals 35 over x. On the second one, it's varying inversely, or they're inversely proportional. Those mean the exact same thing. I'm going to find my constant by doing y times x. So my constant here is 242, which makes my equation 242 divided by x. going to quickly do the example problems just in case you needed to see some more. If I'm finding the direct variation equation, I need my constant, which means I'm dividing the y by the x, which means 100 divided by 10, which means my k equals 10. Then to write the equation, write y equals 10x. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to skip down to the other directly proportional one. I'm doing y divided by x. That is the equation for a direct variation. So I'm just dividing y by x. That's -9 over -54. This simplifies to 1 over 6. You can also write that as a decimal. I'd be okay with that. Most of the time you're going to see that as a fraction. Now I write into my equation of variation. Instead of k, I write 1/6. When we have an inverse variation, we can really use either of these two equations. We can use y equals k over x, or you can use k equals y times x. Either of those is going to work to find your constant, to find this k. They're the exact same equation. This one, you just need to multiply. This one, you would actually need to solve for that k. You can still plug in the x and y there, and then solve for k. It's the exact same steps. You're still just multiplying y times x. So k here is -8 times 9, or -72. -72 is my constant. That goes into my variation equation, which is now y equals -72 over x. These are inversely proportional. X and y are inversely proportional, which means I have to use this equation to find my constant, y times the x. So my constant is 4 times -7, or -28. And now I just take that constant and plug it into my equation, y equals -28 over x.